Welcome to Ty and That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my dear, dear good pal, Ty Franck.
You had trouble remembering my name there, didn't you?
What's up, Ty?
I'm glad to see we both got the memo about wearing black shirts today.
We're black shirt fans.
Yeah.
And every time, actually, I was wearing a black hat today, and I was walking over here, and I was like, I'm pretty sure Ty's going to have a backwards hat on, so I took it off.
I always have a black hat on for the podcast. It's my headphone hat. Yeah,
I've had a real dumb past couple of days, dumber than usual, dumb and dumber. I don't know why I'm going here. I feel like, we're supposed to be doing the podcast talking about Expanse, but I want you to make me feel better about myself, which that is the wrong place to go to. But
this is not what I'm good at.
Yeah, this is not what you're good at. But I ended up hitting I ran into a parked car with my golf cart.
Oh no!
Yeah, and then I ran into something and got some scratches on my forehead. So everybody's fine. Everybody's obviously nobody was in the parked car. Everybody had insurance. Everything's fine. But I've been a little bit absent-minded, probably because I've been thinking about this episode. That's probably why.
Now, what's funny about this is before you showed up, Clint and I were just sitting here chatting. And he literally said, just before you showed up, some people are too good looking to be smart.
Oh, my God.
I'm not even kidding. He literally said that line just before you appeared in the chat.
Clint, explain yourself. You know that
I think you're very handsome. Can't that be enough?
Hey!
You know what else, Clint?
I know a backwards compliment. Hey,
you know what else, Clint?
What?
Wes is very strong. He's very strong.
He really does look very strong to me.
Hey, Clint, is there a world where you would tell that wonderful story you told us at off air last podcast where you would tell it on air?
It's not my story. Listeners, they're referring to a wonderful story that Bobcat Goldthwait once told me that if you ever heard him tell it, you would love. If you heard me tell it, you'd love it too, but it's not my story to tell. So just imagine.
I'm not sure we should throw old Bobcat under the bus with that story without his permission.
You don't have to tell the whole story. I mean, there's some really... It's funny.
No, it's the punchline is what makes that story work, and that's the part you have to get Bob's permission to tell.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we'll have Bobcat on and him tell that story.
Yeah, hey, Clint, can you get Bobcat Goldthwait to come on our podcast?
Sure. I don't know if he's ever seen the show, but we can talk about... I don't know, Bob's a real movie lover. We're doing a list. It'd be easy to get Bob in here.
And I think I've seen all of Bob's movies, so I could talk about his movies.
Well, he loves talking about his movies.
Please,
he actually has a new movie. We'll bring him out and talk about that.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Good. I mean, look, we're guaranteed for 4 or 5 people to go patronize his movie if you bring him on.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it in the comments how people are like, hey, Bob, number 4 here. So here's the thing. they always give themselves a number. Actually, that reminds me. I read a comment today that cracked me up. So the Quantum Leap episode just came out. Somebody wrote, what's his name? Aftermath. He said, my favorite Quantum Leap episode was the one where Sam leaped into John McClane.
Yeah, how come we didn't talk about that one?
I know. We should have done that one. That would have been great.
It would have been the rare time that was on topic.
Before we get started, let's talk about a couple years ago, Ty and I, both being big Stephen King fans, were really excited, but also a bit suspect to go see Dr. Sleep in the theater. And we ended up going, and we were both pleasantly surprised. It was a great time. I thought Mike Flanagan did a phenomenal job, and he's quickly becoming one of my favorites out there, writer-directors. And I just watched Midnight Mass, and I know, Ty, you watched Midnight Mass. Yep. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I think we can kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it, as we go. But overall, I think he's a great writer, and it was a fun ride. What did you think?
I thought it was a really fun ride too, and I thought there were some really nice performances in it. I think he's actually a pretty good filmmaker. I thought Dr. Sleep was a really well-made movie. It looked great. I think Midnight Mass looks great. I don't always love his endings. He did Haunting of Hill House, right?
Yeah, right.
And I thought the first 9 episodes of that were brilliant. Did not love what he did with the 10th episode. Mm-hmm. With Midnight Mass, again, I thought all the run-up was brilliant. didn't love the last 20 minutes of the last episode. So maybe we just have a different aesthetic sense or whatever with how stories should end. I will continue watching everything he makes because much like, people bash Stephen King while he doesn't know how to write an ending. I still read all his books because the 99% before the end is still brilliant.
Right.
So, it's fine. I'll still do it.
And that town was really interesting. First of all, I love a small town. That's my favorite setting for any type of thing. And I find that one of the things that I find refreshing from Mike Flanagan is I feel like we are aligned in our philosophy of horror. I think, number one, it really needs to be about something. And number two, I think that ultimately the story should be able to stand alone as it is without the horror element. So if it's and if that is the case, so if you think about Alien or you think about the Hill House show you're talking about, or that show could stand alone as a family drama about this family and what's happened to them without the horror element. Now, obviously the horror element makes it way more exciting and interesting and injects like an adrenaline in it. But if it's a story that can stand alone without the horror element.
I'm not sure I agree with that though, because if you take the horror element out of Alien, it's about a bunch of people who sleep until they deliver cargo.
So that's if you noticed, I said Alien and then I completely left it out. But then I was like, oh shit, that doesn't work. But if you talk about Aliens, then you have a great action movie,
right? Well, I mean, but again, like one of the first slasher movies ever, and still considered one of the best, is Halloween. Without the horror element, Halloween is about Jamie Lee Curtis babysitting.
which I think is a riveting movie. I would love to watch that. You're talking about the premise doesn't work because there's basically Jamie Lee Curtis and then Mike Myers shows up and then all the horror takes place and that's what the movie's about.
Yeah.
But what if Mike Myers doesn't show up and she has a meet cute on the way to the babysitters and then there's this little romance that going on and thing. You don't know.
You're saying it works if you write a completely different movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is the theory that I just talked about, throw it all out the window, okay? It doesn't make sense. But I'm talking about...
No, but I think what you are saying, and I don't disagree with you, is that a horror movie, you feel it's a richer story if there is a story that doesn't depend on the horror.
Exactly.
That the horror is a spice on top of an already interesting story.
Exactly. And I would need to think through when we talk about other horror movies that we love, but specifically with Mike Flanagan, like I think Haunted on Hill House, if I watch that works as a drama, a family drama about trauma and pain, the past, and confronting these things.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think I can't wait to see what he's doing next. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite filmmakers and TV shows.
Yeah, I'm excited to see whatever he does next too. My minor complaint about not necessarily liking the endings of these things is that it's pretty minor. When you deliver 9 outstanding episodes, the fact that I didn't love the 10th, I'm still 90% hit rate. You're still a Hall of Famer.
Right. And the balance of those episodes, he's really not scared to take his time and to really reveal a lot about the characters and go into each one and what their struggles are and why they're on the island. And that place is very unique. I think it's somewhere in British Columbia. Like the
that
island
makes sense.
It looks
it felt like a New England fishing town.
Yeah. And the aesthetic of it is something that I haven't really seen before. And I like the isolation. And when there's something on the island, and I love me a small town, and I love a movie that takes place in a small town and where shit gets awry. I also like that he uses a lot of the same actors. He has kind of a theater company. A lot of the same people are in a lot of his stuff. Did you see Oculus?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
I didn't see that one. What did you think?
That's the one with Karen Gillan. That's the one with Karen Gillan, right? Well,
I haven't seen it, but I read about it. It's the one where there's a mirror. And
okay, that is the one. That's the one. Yeah, Karen Gillan is one of the 2 stars of it. I actually really liked Oculus, and I thought was very effective in some of the ways that it handled the horror. Because for me, and we've talked about this before actually on this podcast, is for me, horror is most effective when the characters keep doing the things I would do, and it doesn't work. Because then I don't feel like they're stupid. I don't sit there and go, well, idiot, obviously you're going to get killed because you're stupid.
Yeah.
And Oculus did that.
Like if a character runs into a parked car with a golf cart, then you're like, that's an idiot. That's fucking idiot.
Yeah, well, you're going to get murdered then. But the Karen Gillan character, the main character, she kept being smart. I mean, the dumb thing at the very beginning is that she decides to take this mirror on at all. But once you get past that, she kept being smart in the way she was trying to deal with this, and the safety measures she put in place to try to, make sure that even if things went wrong, she had a backup plan and all that stuff. I thought it was really well done. And the way that it manipulated your perception when you got to the end and realized how she had failed, it felt very fair. It felt like, oh yeah, well, we've been seeing all along that this is the way it operates. So of course that's how it got her. I thought it was well done.
What I loved about Dr. Sleep is I agree with Stephen King, even though I think The Shining is a masterpiece and it's in my top 5 of all time, the Kubrick Shining. Yeah. I agree with Stephen King's criticism that Jack Nicholson starts off, he's already fucking crazy at the beginning of the thing. There isn't really much of an arc or much of like his downfall of being possessed by this house. But what Flanagan does, which I think is really impressive, is he honors Stephen King's book and also honors the movie. Yeah. And then creates something new and brings the Dr. Sleep book to life in a way that honors both of those things. And
he threaded a needle there. It was, we talked about it when we were walking back to the hotel after we saw it. I was shocked he was able to do both. Mm-hmm. It was incredibly well done. It was incredibly deftly handled. That he could, as you said, he honored the book, he honored the movie. He created a thing that seemed to come from both places. It was really cleverly done.
And we also fell in love with Rose the Hat, right?
My affection for Rose the Hat is ongoing and embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, there was something about her where I was like, I don't know if they're those essence-sucking vampire creatures, but I'll be one of them. Go ahead, let's rock.
A friend
and roll.
of mine is making a project right now with Rebecca Ferguson, and I had to tell him, I'm like, I don't know if I could make something that she's on, because it would be weird. I'd be like, I'm sorry, I have too much of a crush on you. You're not allowed to work on my project.
Absolutely. So today we're talking about Dandelion Sky. You want to talk a little bit about the title? I think I remember, I don't know if you told me this or I heard you in an interview that you were thinking about naming your book this.
Yeah, this was Daniel's pitch for the name of the third book, and the publisher didn't like it. So I had named the first 2 books. So Leviathan Wakes was my title for the first book. When we were talking about the second book, I came up with the title Caliban's War. And when we got to the third book, I didn't have a good title. I was like, I don't know what the title of this should be. And Daniel's one, he came up with Dandelion Sky, because there's a moment in the book where they talk about the gates as the seeds of dandelions. Whoever built those gates was like blowing seeds of their civilization out into the galaxy, right? I thought it was a great title. I was like, yeah, that's a fucking fantastic title. So we sent that to the publisher, and they didn't like it. They wanted something that matched the first 2. They wanted a mythological thing, says or does, or has or does something, right? They wanted that. So, Leviathan Wakes, Caliban's War. And I was bummed because I thought it was a really good title. So when we got to making the show and we got to this episode and we're trying to figure out the title for the episode, I said to Narain, I'm like, just use Daniel's title for the book. And Narain really liked it. So that's why it wound up being the title of the episode. So at least that title got on something, because I really liked it.
I feel Anna's struggle in the beginning. It reminds me of a story. There's this really nice pool, like big pool in this little town close to where I live. And a lot of my friends, whatever, we always go to this pool and hang out. It's like a massive lap pool and then a regular massive pool. And then there's a kids pool, and it's just a cool place. It's roomy. It's never crowded. It's a good place to hang out. Well, this summer we're out there hanging out, and I met this really cool guy, and we're all hanging out with friends and we bring our kids. It's just a good time. And I met this really cool guy and we started talking, and it wasn't until I think and every time I would go to the pool, he was there hanging out, having some beers, drinking some drinks, having a good time. And it wasn't until I knew him for a while, maybe a month, where we started talking about, what we do or whatever. Because I was like, hey, man, you're at the pool having a good time. And he said, well, I'm on sabbatical. And then I found out that he was a preacher at a, pretty big, well-known church. And he's a preacher. But, we're hanging out, drinking. And then immediately, so as soon as he says that, immediately my mind starts going to like, okay, what sex jokes did I, what did I, you start editing like, oh shit, but then you're like, well, we were hanging out, he was having a good time. But as he said that, you can see through other conversations of other people hanging out at the pool, you can see people's behavior change around him, but also not only change, wanting to ask him questions about things. It's almost like I feel like, okay, well, he's off work, but he still has this calling and this is thing he has to do. So Anna's basically, they're about to go through this gate and experience something that no human being has ever experienced, see another side of something that no one's seen, and maybe she's going to catch a glimpse of God, or maybe see life that we've never seen before, and she's caught up and swept up in this moment. And old wet blanket Jordan rolls up and wants to talk about God, and she's like, piss off, Jordan. She didn't say it like that, but she's kind of like, hey, I'll just be over here. And I will say that was refreshing to see a little bit of, Anna's a wonderful person, but you like to see a little bit of, there's a little bit of selfishness there. You like to see a little bit of like, I'm in this place or whatever, and that's refreshing to see.
Well, the whole thing with her being there is clearly selfish. Her wife doesn't want her to be there. Her wife is asking her to come home. She has an opportunity to leave and chooses not to. So she keeps making the selfish decision over and over again, because you're right. She wants to see a miracle.
Right.
Like, she's gone her whole life. She's never seen a miracle. She's definitely a person who believes in God, believes in this sort of spiritual side to life, and she's never seen a miracle. And she feels like if she can just stay there long enough, she will finally see the miracle she's been yearning for her entire life. And she is sacrificing some personal relationships to do it, or at least, damaging some personal relationships to do it.
Right.
It's a thing I understand. It's a compulsion I understand.
And what was Jordan's hang up?
He's scared. He's terrified.
Okay. All right, but so here's my question. Okay, so he's a Methodist, right?
Yeah.
So Methodist, he believes two things. He believes God is real, and he believes in traditional heaven, but he also believes that suicide, you'll spend an eternity burning in hell and being tortured.
I don't know that that's true. I don't know that Methodists believe. That's a Catholic belief, that suicide is a cardinal sin. I don't know that Methodists have that same belief.
I think they do, but I could be mistaken. Maybe Clint will look it up. But Clint's like, he's right now. I can picture him like,
I won't do that.
But did he say I won't do that?
Yes, I did.
Anyway, but okay. So let's say he doesn't believe that, but he believes in God, right? So he has a chance to see this. Why not hold off 10 minutes and see what's on the other side? If you're willing to kill yourself and you got a way out, first of all, what are you scared of? You're not scared of death because you're willing to do it to yourself. And what's going to happen? The ship explodes and then you die? So you're going to kill yourself so you won't have to experience that? And why not go through?
I think you're ignoring the larger context here. Think about what people know about the protomolecule at that point. Think about what they saw happen on Eros. Those people didn't necessarily die. They were turned into this horrible other thing. Everybody knows about that. Everybody knows that the protomolecule has done these seemingly horrific things when people interact with it. And now we're going maybe to the place where protomolecule comes from, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think he's worried about dying. I think he's worried about what's going to happen when they face whatever made the protomolecule. Like, is he going to wind up in one of the horrible situation like all the people on Eros did, right? I understand why you could make that logical leap, because those people didn't just die. They were horribly mutated and turned into something awful. The radio broadcast that came off of Eros included people screaming, and Miller talks about how, the people who are trapped on Eros, they're still, if this is in a later season, but talks about how they're still crying out in pain and confusion even years after their death. I understand why that dude's scared of that. Well, I get it.
Look, I don't want to be insensitive to Jordan. Obviously he's got some things going on or whatever, but I think, but fear of the unknown doesn't make sense for me, because he's taking the leap himself into the ultimate unknown. And so, yeah, there is the chance, but just carry your gun with you, man. As soon as things look weird, take the exit plan. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think anybody would argue that in most cases, suicide is the rational choice.
Right.
Maybe in a few very select cases, it does turn into the rational choice. And I'm certainly not judging everybody who's faced with that decision. But for most people, the little quip is always like, suicide is a permanent solution to temporary problems. most of the time it's not a rational choice. Most of the time it is a choice that is made because a person feels overwhelmed and doesn't see a way out. They feel overwhelmed by pressures of life or, impending disasters, and they don't see any way out of it. So I don't know, we don't explain everything that's going on in Jordan's head.
I think, this conversation is really about clarity for me, because it makes more, if Jordan is somebody that's already barely hanging on and has maybe thought about this once or twice and has been very close in the past, and then he's confronted with this thing that he just can't deal with for whatever level, and that makes sense. But like if Jordan was just just a normal happy-go-lucky sailor, and then they go through the ring and it freaks him out to the point where he's going to kill himself, that's what I was trying to try to understand.
The only time we ever see Jordan is when he bumps up against Anna.
Mm-hmm.
She's our point of view.
Right.
He's not.
Right.
We're just seeing the edges of it. And for me, that feels very real. Like, I've known a few people who committed suicide, and it's a horrible thing, and it's devastating for everybody involved. And
so do I. Yeah.
Everybody always goes, I don't understand why they did it.
Yeah.
I think most of the time people won't understand why somebody makes that choice. I don't think you can unless you're inside their head. And the other thing is, I think most of us move through life bumping into people and not understanding where they are. Like, one of the people I know who did commit suicide, I barely knew that person. Mm-hmm. So my vision of them, when I found out they had done that, I was shocked. I was like, God, I never saw that in that person. I never saw it. They didn't seem depressed. They didn't seem upset. But again, I'm like the Anna of that story. I just barely brushed up against that person. Right? I saw the public face they were showing, and I didn't dig any deeper. I didn't see any deeper into them.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very realistic suicide story. Like this person, and he's reaching out a little bit to Anna, but she doesn't understand the depth of the despair that he's dealing with.
It's got to be horrific for Anna. I mean,
and
what her job is and what.
Yeah. And we do show that. Like how hard that hits her, that she feels like she failed this person. And I think that is a very common reaction to finding out somebody has committed suicide, is immediately you go to, how did I fail them? What could I have done to make it better? Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, I've had experience with that, and there's some people that, I was close with, and then there's some people that I was not close with. But every time your first reaction is surprise, and then you think about, maybe I could have reached out or something. But even it's the human nature to be like, how could I have helped that person? Even if that person wasn't in your orbit or somebody like in your direct, you're like, man, maybe I could have invited this person or, any of that. We were at Sci-Fi at this time, right?
Yeah. In season 3, we were still at Sci-Fi. Yeah.
Was there any pushback for seeing the actual suicide? And
I don't remember if there was. I don't think so. I don't remember that conversation. And certainly if there had been pushback and conversation about writing the scene differently, we would have talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
I was always surprised by the things that networks got skittish about. They were never the things I expected them to be skittish about.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all felt like that was a pretty devastating scene, and we might get a little pushback. And I don't remember getting any pushback, but we got pushback for other things, which I've always found weird, which is like...
Yeah, if you show like a butt cheek. So a guy puts his pistol in the mouth and shoots himself, and they just go through that. But, if there's a butt cheek on there, we have to talk about that.
Well, it's America. You can show horrific violence and nobody bats an eye. But if you show a boob, everybody flips out. I don't know why that's the American version.
Yeah.
But it's the exact opposite. You go to Europe and like TV, like there's just boobs everywhere on TV. Nobody gives a fuck. But if there's like bloody violence, then like that has to be censored. Right. So I don't know why we're so backwards on that.
I don't know. So Anna feels horrific about what happened, and she gives a really moving, touching eulogy at his wake, and it inspires Tilly. And Tilly, surprisingly, comes around, and she happened to run into Clarissa. She knows Clarissa's there, and she knows Clarissa's going through something with her father, and Anna encourages her to help her. And so Tilly goes, and this is probably like one of the... I don't know how many decent things Tilly has done in her life, but this is, definitely something that she's definitely trying to do something that's good. But she talks to the wrong one because Clarissa is not in the place, and she ends up clicking that murder button in her jawline. So, but before she gets to Tilly, let's hop over to Holden's world real quick. So Holden leaves a goodbye note. And he is going with him and Dead Miller taking a space road trip and they're going to the nucleus of the thing, and they think that Holden, the only thing he can trust is that there has to be some kind of answer there. I'm boxed in here. I don't have any other choices. This is really my only choice, and then maybe there's something there that could maybe the answer's there. And I really like Amos and Alex's reaction to this, because Alex is really spooked out about all this weird shit that's going on. And Amos, he's just like, I'm sorry, I just don't feel what you feel. And Alex thinks it's a good thing. Amos is like, this isn't a good thing. One of the things that I like about Amos as a character is that if somebody sees him on the surface, they might think that he has this bravado or this aspiration to be a tough guy or something like that. That's not the case with him. He's actually, that doesn't even hold any interest to him. He just doesn't feel things the way other people. He doesn't feel fear the way people fear. Yeah. And he has a cold, calculated way of doing the math that he learned on the streets of Baltimore and having with a horrible upbringing. So he doesn't have that kind of, quippy, tough guy, machismo thing going on, which I think makes Amos really stand out.
We talk about this a lot with Daniel and I talked about this a lot when we were writing the books, and we talked about this a bunch in the writer's room, and then we always have to explain this to every new director who comes in, is when people act threatening, it's because they're afraid of the confrontation, so they're hoping the threat heads off the confrontation, right? Amos doesn't, like, if you want to fight with Amos, he'll fight. He doesn't want to fight, but he's not scared of fighting, and so there's no reason for him to be threatening, right? He's just waiting to see what you're going to do. He's not trying to push you to do it. He's not trying to push you not to do it. It's just like, if you're going to do it, we'll see what happens.
And he'll take the quickest route to shut you down. He's not John Wayne. Like, he'll shoot you in the back, if that's the easiest way to get rid of him.
We do have a scene where he stabs somebody with a toothbrush later. Well, and we talked about this when Bobby, a few episodes ago, when Bobby comes on the ship and she's acting like she's just going to take over. First thing Amos does is grab a big ass wrench.
Yeah.
Like he's not looking to box.
Yeah, absolutely not.
He's just like, well, I'll just hit you with this wrench and then the problem is solved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how Amos confronts Alex by telling the story of his friend that if it's the end of the world, should go up, have a drink a bottle of wine, jump off with her two cats like a fucking pharaoh.
You know who that friend is, right?
Robin.
That's Robin.
Robin
told us that story in the writer's room. Yep.
Robin told you that. Yeah, tell a little bit about that what she said in the writer's room.
No, that was what she said. Is in the writer's room, she was people talking about what you would do if like a great catastrophe came, like a nuclear war, or, the world was going to be destroyed in some way. And she said, she's like, I'd get a lawn chair, I'd go up to the roof of my building with a bottle, hang out with my cats, watch the end of the world happens. And the minute that it starts to seem like it's going to hurt, I'm just jumping off.
I love how, and Amos basically says, don't worry, I'll include you in my murder-suicide.
Yeah, I'll take you with me.
And I'll include you in my murder. Buddy. And then he kind of gives him a little scratch in the back of his ear like you would a cat. Like it's just genius. You work with genius actors. So Holden and Dead Miller are on their spacewalk. And this episode gets philosophical in a lot of ways. I mean, you talk about determinism, free will, the state of consciousness, fear, the nature of fear. You and I have had long talks, but I think it's really interesting. What is your thoughts on determinism?
I think that the nature of the universe forces me to say that I don't think it's true. Here's my feeling on it. I don't know. It's all too complicated for me to figure out. I'm definitely a materialist and naturalist. I think everything that exists can be explained with the things that exist. I don't think we need any supernatural element to explain anything.
But if you are a pure materialist and naturalist, determinism can be a compelling argument for you.
It can be. That's why I'm saying it's so complicated, even just the things that exist without including any supernatural element, even with just the things that exist, it's so complicated. And there are so many emergent properties of wildly disparate elements that there's no way to figure all of it out.
Yeah.
It's just all too complicated. And a friend of mine, David, somebody asked him, do you believe in free will? And he goes, I believe in virtual free will, in that I believe that I have free will. So even if I don't, I experience the world as if I do. So whether or not it's real, true, by the book free will, it's virtual free will for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that explanation. I experience the universe as if I have free will, as if I get to make decisions and choices. And that's how it feels to live my life.
Yeah.
So if I found out that everything was purely deterministic,
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't change how I experience the world.
For me, this falls into what you and I talk about a lot, and I think what he said about free will is really eloquent and interesting. It makes total sense. I mean, look, if if I ever murder somebody, I'm definitely going to be a determinism guy. But you know, I think that if you ever follow the thread far enough, like I read a lot about it, and Sam Harris does a lot of podcasts. You know, he talks about determinism, and he's written a few papers on it. But if you go down that thing, anytime you claim certainty, anytime you lean into that thing, I have way more comfort of what your buddy said. Like I'm just betting on free will because this is how. And if it's not, I'm still going to think I got free will. And then, you know, ultimately, it's a mystery that I will never get to the bottom of. And at some point, you have to embrace and make peace with the mystery. I also think it's more interesting that way.
Yeah.
And when you fight for certainty, then I think you're just there's no way to not be false or untrue in some way because certainty just doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
On some levels. And
the reality is, I also think that the concept of free will cannot coexist with an omnipotent, omniscient God. I think those things cannot coexist. Because if God already knows everything that's going to happen all throughout history, by definition, you don't have free will.
Right.
So I think these things are things that, because we have our brains work in a way where we have this need to sort of understand the infinite, which is, you know, both the blessing and curse of human consciousness. I think we like to ponder those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're interesting questions to talk about, but they don't change the way I live my life.
And I think as a pure naturalist materialist, I think you're very respectful to the other side, even how you write for Anna. You know, and, you know, her being an intelligent, articulate person who has these beliefs, but has it in a pragmatic, very sober way of thinking about it. And how she quotes St. Augustine. So basically she said, I believe that we have been given two texts, the Bible and creation. Yeah. Do you remember it now?
Yeah. It's, if the Bible seems to disagree with creation, then you've misunderstood the Bible.
Yes. And then if they contradict each other, then you've misunderstood one of the texts.
But she is pragmatic. You know, when the guy makes fun of her, he's like, oh, I thought you came here with the godly contingent. And she says, yeah, but I came on a spaceship, not on the wings of an angel. I can tell the difference.
Yeah.
That is, in my mind, the sober intellectual version of religious belief that I have no disagreement with. That I have many friends who are deeply religious, and we can have conversations about this stuff, because as long as everybody's willing to agree that we don't have the full picture, what you're talking about, we don't have certainty. As long as everybody's able to agree on that, then we can have conversations about this stuff. Mm-hmm. It is when a person insists that their belief trumps observable reality and cannot be budged from that, then I can no longer have a conversation with that person.
Right.
And Anna's not that person. Anna she's always the great struggle of Anna's life. And I think part of the reason why she has gone to this place and she's looking for this miracle is all her life, what she has tried to do is get those two worlds to overlap to some degree. An educated person, she's got obviously a PhD in theology, but she's also a nurse. So she's studied science. She's studied biology. She knows that science works. And what she wants to do is she wants to get that rational science part of her world and the supernatural religious part of her world. She's trying to get those two things to overlap. And that is, I think, the central quest of her intellectual life. And I think that's why she thinks going through this ring might help her move those two circles a little closer into alignment. That is a quest for knowledge I respect. That's a quest for knowledge that I understand. And I would never have a disagreement with somebody who's trying to do that.
Because I think it's honest. I think
honest.
Then I think the fight is for clarity and honesty over being right.
Yeah.
And over being locked into a narrative
Absolutely.
that you feel defines you or gives you a sense of self. When your identity is wrapped up in a belief, then you're basically defending your identity, who you think you are, as opposed to really fighting for clarity and truth and honesty. So Holden gets to the center of the nucleus, and Miller explains to him that he wants him to complete the circuit. is this really they just need a human to be able to complete the circuit? Or
no, it's not a human. It is anything physical. They need, so we get much more into this in the books and later seasons of the show, but the creators of the protomolecule, the creators of the gate network, had moved to a point where they were no longer physical beings. And so there were safety systems in place in their technology that could only be activated by a physical being, because that shows that the fact of being physical gives you a different status. So Miller is basically a construct. He's not real. He's a simulation. He can't turn certain things on in the technology, and he needs a physical thing to go.
But does it have to be biomass?
We don't specifically say that, but my feeling is, they're looking for a biological entity to do that.
So it could they could take any, with the Marines there, they could have took a Marine apart and physically put it in the.
But see, so much of, and this is deep dive stuff. This is not stuff we get super explicit on in the show. In the later books, toward the end of the series, and especially the book that's about to come out end of November, we really do a lot more explaining of this. A lot of what the protomolecule builders worked with was consciousness. Mm-hmm. And I think part of what the thing that turns that thing on needed to be was a consciousness, biology and consciousness connected. So a person, or, a person equivalent.
So Billy Shakespeare said that the greatest compliment of one artist to another artist is theft.
Oh, yeah.
So my question to you is, how much did you steal from Total Recall to complete the thing, the circuit?
Well, I think Total Recall is the foundation of all good modern science fiction.
Damn it. I love you, Ty. That was a beautiful, beautiful statement that you said just then. Yeah. People talk about like story structure and these timeless stories that come from Shakespeare. Yeah, right. Total Recall is the source of it all. Hamlet?
Well, no. So I think there's before Total Recall and there's after Total Recall. And when you get to after Total Recall, all great sci-fi is to some degree based on Total Recall.
Right.
Once you've gotten past it.
And
before that, they didn't know.
And the Expanse is ATR after Total Recall. Not
That's
BTR,
right.
Before Total Recall.
Right.
It's ATR. So a Martian squad comes down, and they're there to intercept Holden and whatever he's trying to do. How did Bobby get stationed to the squadron?
You mean in the story or in reality?
Okay, well then that makes more sense, because I was trying to make it make sense story-wise. Like, somebody that is as compromised as she is on so many different levels, particularly with the personal relationship with Holden, how could she ever receive orders to be part of this Martian group to go down to intercept Holden?
Well, I think you're jumping ahead of the story at this point a little bit.
Okay.
She becomes more compromised later, or at least outwardly seemingly compromised. At this point, she is the person who joined forces with Holden and Avasarala to stop a war that actually did benefit Mars. Now, one of the things...
But she basically beat the fuck out of a Martian superior officer and then went AWOL and then was basically working with Avasarala.
And that Martian superior officer was revealed to have been in cahoots with a underground movement that was trying to co-opt the Martian government.
Right.
So she beat the crap out of Steve Bannon. But they didn't know he was Steve Bannon. Later, they're like, oh, it's Steve Bannon. Of course you beat the crap out of that guy.
But if there's somebody that is compromised where the Martian military does not feel that they would have complete control of the situation, there's some unknown variables within her relationship to Holden and her relationship to Avasarala.
And we had this conversation because there was a number of voices that were like, wouldn't Bobby have gotten promoted? Why isn't she a lieutenant now? Why is she still a sergeant? She have been promoted. And I kept saying, no, they don't trust her. They'll say they will. They say they trust her. Oh, she's been brought back with open arms. She's been reinstated as a Marine. She's been given her old thing back. She's a hero because she's helped stop this war with Earth. She helped uncover this shadow government that was co-opting Mars. She did all these things that are on paper really good things, and still they don't trust her. She's still the person who, like you said, beat up a superior officer, ran off and joined forces with Avasarala, did all of that stuff. So there's these two sides to this, where everything you're saying is 100% right, but they can't openly say that because on paper and the public face of all this is that she's a hero. So they're doing both at the same time. They're squashing her career. They're putting her in positions where she's not going to be in charge of anything. They don't trust her. And at the same time, Martian News Network is calling her a hero and they're pinning medals on her chest. They're like, yay, she stopped this horrible thing from happening. So it's both.
But she wasn't down there in the books. Did you make the decision, or did
No, that was Narain. Narain felt like there are a squad of recon Marines in the books in this book, and they wind up being important to the story. Mm-hmm. And Narain was like, well, if we've already got Bobby, why can't she be one of those recon Marines? So that was, we've got this actor. We'd like to keep using them. We like them. We like Frankie. She's already one of the people that is supposed to be making up this group. So that was a TV, casting decision, which, I'm fine with that. I love Frankie. So I was happy to,
I was happy to see her there. I was just trying to wrap my head around how she was there. How could she be there? But I was happy to see her there. Yeah. And what I love about her being there is she's one of the first ones to unload on Holden when he's still going for the thing. And it's like, oh shit. Her duty. Hey, Ty, what is that? What is that she's about to? She shot 8 bullets at Holden.
She shot a bunch of bullets at somebody who's her friend. I think that's cold-blooded.
Cold-blooded.
Yeah, it is. But again, think about it. She knows they don't trust her. She knows they think she's compromised. So when it becomes clear that they're going to start shooting at Holden, of course she has to pull the trigger first, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same exact logic behind Drummer firing the first missile at the Rossi. Mm-hmm. When Ashford's going, they're all going to start shooting at him. We have to shoot first or they're going to think we're on his side. That's what Bobby's doing there, right?
Have you ever seen those? There's certain scenarios, I love the scenario. I think it was in Crocodile Dundee 2. There's a bunch of movies and I love the scenario where basically they have a hostage. I think it was a Crocodile Dundee 2 too. And they're holding him, and they end up shooting him. The guy that they're friends with shoots him, and the reason they shoot him is ultimately, but it's just a funny way to what the fuck? Why'd you shoot me? I wish I would have thought of some good scene. I think Crocodile Dundee 2, when his buddy is being held hostage, I think Crocodile Dundee 2 shoots him to show that
no, what happens in Crocodile Dundee 2? No, you're thinking of a different thing. In Crocodile Dundee 2, what happens? Mick gets control over the guy who had the gun on him and changes clothes with him. So he's wearing the bad guy clothes and the bad guy's wearing his clothes. And then when the situation is resolved and he's walking over to meet up with his people, they think he's the bad guy, so they shoot him.
No. So
yeah, that's what happens there.
No, it's later than the story. So what happens is earlier in the story, when the bad guys confront Crocodile Dundee, I think he's in his treehouse area with his, and they confront him, and they pull him out there. They pull the guy, whatever, out there, and Crocodile Dundee either he takes a shot at him or he shoots him, and then they pull him back, and they're like, why would he want to shoot you? And because she says,
you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. He doesn't shoot him, but he shoots at him.
He shoots at him,
hat or something.
And the person he's with says, why did you shoot at him? He goes, trust me, I just saved his life. And then they said to him, why? And he goes, oh, probably because I know these woods better than I'm the only person that knows the outback better than him.
Yeah, he saves his life by pretending he wants to kill him. Yeah,
that's right. The whole way, you're right. Dundee is coaching him of where to take him and where to go.
Yeah, that's right.
There's another one of those that's really funny.
Well, there's a bunch of scenes where somebody's holding somebody hostage.
Yeah,
and the other person just shoots them in the leg, so they fall down. Yeah. That trope has been used a lot.
Yeah, and I just think it's funny, if you were held hostage and I was there and I was like, let Ty go, and then I shoot you, you'd be like, what the fuck, Wes? Why you do that? But I can't wait to Joseph put some Crocodile Dundee stuff in here because we get some play in that. So the Marines, they take shots. It's frozen. The ring thinks that obviously identifies this as a threat. The one Marine throws the grenade, which blows up. And this was a great death. This was a good kill. In the horror world, that's a good kill. Where it elevates him, and then it sucks off his outfit, and then sucks his skin off, and then basically puts him together to
it turns him into spackle.
And spackle, and the ship absorbs it. And
and by the way, let's pause here for a moment to remember the fact that guy who's in 2 or 3 episodes of season 3 and gets that really memorable death, he's the latest fucking Marvel superhero.
What?
Yeah.
Who
the
is
Marvel
he?
movie that just came out. Simu Liu is the actor. He's the guy. He's the star of the new Marvel movie.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, I did, so you're watching it and whatever, and I was like, that guy's interesting, when you see whatever, he did a good job. But Mao was all wrong, trying to use a proto molecule for this, whatever. He should have been thinking about home defense. Because imagine if somebody was coming to your house with bad intentions and the ring, you basically had a ring gate around your house. And it just absorbed them into your yard. And I know who the first customer would be. It'd be Ty fucking Franck. If you could have, instead of the ring, and imagine if you're in control of it, right? So somebody knocks on your door and you do the ring and you're like, what do you want? And if they have bad intentions, just and it just absorb them into your lawn. Maybe you can
or if some kid throws a brick through your window and it just grabs him and turns him into a window.
Yeah. So the kid rides by and he's like, ha ha, and he throws a brick and it shatters the window, and then he's frozen. Absorb him, and then they make a new window with him.
Make a new window out of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
That would be great. That would be awesome.
Yeah, don't break stuff in my house.
Yeah.
You break anything in my house.
That's the next movie, Ty, where there's a house made of the ring technology. That
somebody drops a glass and it shatters. They're like, oh no! Gets picked up, turned into a glass.
It's owned by just some grumpy guy that just doesn't want to interact with anybody. So
it's owned by me.
It's owned by Ty. I didn't want to say I didn't want to call you out, but yeah, it's owned by Ty. So Holden completes the circuit, and we have this amazing 2001 space montage. Yeah. What are we seeing?
What Holden is seeing is why the ring network is closed when they get there. He's seeing this expanding empire of planets connected by this huge ring network. He's seeing that something begins attacking those planets, something dark and frightening begins attacking those planets. The ring station starts destroying the solar systems that have been attacked. You see it fire and you see that sun explode.
Wait, the ring is destroying solar systems?
Yeah, there's the shot where the ring station fires that blue beam through a ring. It hits the star turns blue and then explodes.
Wow.
And he talks about how they cauterized entire solar systems, or burned entire solar systems like they were cauterizing a wound.
Right.
So that's the ring network fighting back against whatever this foreign aggressor is. And then eventually it ends with they just turned all the rings off.
Right.
To keep the infection from spreading.
See, I'm in that camp. The bigger I can comprehend the universe to be, the more I'm reminded of how insignificant I am. That gives me peace. Some people, it stresses them out. But for whatever reason, the more insignificant I feel, the more peace I have.
I agree with you because, the worst I can do is pretty fucking trivial in the great scheme of things.
Exactly.
So, I'm not tipping the scales one way or the other. I don't need to obsess about that.
If I was Holden and I saw that vision of everything, and where something can destroy solar systems and cauterize universes and everything, I'd be like, there's really nothing. I don't mean anything, no. And I could just fucking finally relax.
That kid that I pushed down in third grade and he started crying and I feel really bad about it. As an adult, it didn't really matter.
It's got to the grown up third grader is like in Happy Madison or
he's cleaning his gun. He's got my name written on a list.
He's cleaning his gun. And he's like, oh yeah, you think it doesn't mean anything? But yeah, so I sometimes if I think about at some point when I die, nobody will ever further down as long if you go far enough down the timeline, you will be completely and totally forgotten. Your existence will be completely and totally wiped out. And there's something about that just really gives me comfort and makes me relax in the present moment of what we are now.
Yeah, there's a moment in, maybe you just made me think of that moment in that movie Troy, where Achilles is like, I'm going to fight in this battle so my name will be remembered for 1,000 years. And Hector says, in 1,000 years, even the dust from our bones will be gone. Basically saying, if you're trying to make sure you're remembered 1,000 years from now, that's insanity.
And foolish.
Yeah. And foolish. Yeah. And I agree with that. That if you're trying to make sure you have a big name that lasts a long time, you're probably wasting the time that you have in the immediate moment.
Right.
Right. Like
right.
I'd much rather have the people who are in my life now remember me fondly than be playing
the
game to try to be remembered 1,000 years from now.
I mean, fondly is a strong word. Remember you. Yeah.
Well, no, I only need one person to like me, and that's my wife. She already does. The rest of you, I don't care.
Okay. So, why is Holden naked?
Because he's sexy as hell.
I mean, hey, look.
Hey, this is a little something for those who appreciate the male form. Be you woman, be you man who loves the male form, whatever. We don't discriminate. But if you are a fan of the beauty of the male form, this is our gift to you.
And that is a total fair. That makes total sense to me. And you look, I think, I enjoyed it too. So I appreciate it. And I think old Stephen Strait's got a beautiful body and it's there. But I just didn't know if there was like some kind of story reason. But the reason you said makes perfect sense.
So there is a story reason, which is that when he has these visions, and there are some visions later in the season that he's not actually there in a physical sense. This is inside his mind, right? And so the version of himself inside his mind is whatever he's imagining himself to be. So the real answer is that Holden, inside his mind, whenever he pictures himself, he always pictures himself naked. That's the answer. When Holden's thinking about himself, it's just full frontal.
So this is a mental projection.
Yeah.
What?
Because at the end of the season, there's that moment where he's on the beach, right?
Yeah.
He's naked there too. That's all in his mind.
Wouldn't it be funny if like there was like some kind of fetish that he had, like if he was a fuzzy or something like, and then every time he pictures himself, he's
in like a bear costume.
Yeah,
He's like the bear from The Shining.
I was gonna say the bear from The Shining, and you never explain it. So he's like floating through space as a bear.
Yeah,
and then
just
seeing like all this
costume.
thing. Yeah, you never explain it. And maybe at some point Miller's like, "Hey, what's with the bear costume?" And he's like when you don't want to talk about Julie, I don't want to talk about the bear costume.
I don't talk about the bear.
Yeah, don't ask me about the bear. Naomi's floating in space, wondering why the Rossi won't answer her. Ashford is a bit pissed off at Drummer because Drummer let Naomi go.
Yeah.
And, there's definitely some suspense in that relationship because Drummer says to Ashford, look, you publicly supported me in a way, but you did it in a way that you would have basically deniability going forward.
And here's the thing. I think she's right. We don't ever come out and say it, but from my perspective, he is undercutting her while pretending to be loyal at the same time.
But what's tricky is that Diogo comes at him and has, coup on his breath, and Ashford completely shuts him down. Now he could think that is an unreliable guy to confide in, and like that guy's too dangerous, or he doesn't have those intentions.
I think Drummer, analyzes it quite correctly. She says, you're going to keep shutting people down who request the coup so that when something happens and you're forced to take my place, when you have a story about being forced to do it, everybody will think you didn't really want it, that it was forced on you.
Right.
And I think she's analyzing that correctly. I think that is in the back of his mind.
Right.
That he'll be the guy who protested every time they tried to make him king. So when they force the crown on his head, he can be the reluctant king, but he's still the fucking king, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Drummer is very smart. I think she's very perceptive. I think she knows exactly what's going on there.
Do you think she runs into parked cars with her golf cart?
I don't think she has ever hit a parked car with her golf cart. Yeah. I mean, now an argument can be made that some people are too pretty to be smart.
Hold on.
I think she's the exception to that. I think she is both pretty and smart.
Here's what happened. I put sunscreen on because we're in the Georgia sun. I put sunscreen on. Going down the road, there were two cars that were parked where they shouldn't have been parked because there's a 2-lane road. So, and there was a car, when you get in that choke point and there's a car coming, and I was like, okay, I'll be nice. I pulled over so that car can come through. And then as I was doing this to come back onto the road, my hand slipped off the steering wheel. And I was goosing it to get out of there, and I went like that, and just a tad bit of my bumper clipped and then my wheel hit the wheel of the car and turned the golf cart into the car. And so then it's kind of one of those freak things that happen, but nobody's hurt. Everything's fine. Just my ego.
Well, but the fact that you're putting on sunscreen, that is a point in the smart favor.
That is definitely a point.
Yeah, because
skin cancer is a real thing.
Yeah, I don't know how many people this cable guy has killed, but I guarantee you hasn't killed as many people as melanoma.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You saw Deadpool 2, right? I'm sorry, I'm quoting Deadpool 2 at you. I don't know.
I did see Deadpool 2. So my movie top 5 today is totally selfish. This show had nothing to do with time travel, or maybe it did. Maybe because it's something that you're dealing with that is beyond time, that's bigger, and so maybe I can connect it that way. But
in Holden's vision, he is traveling backward in time, is what's happening there, and seeing the past and then being brought back forward again to the current moment. So yeah, there's this perception of time travel happening. Absolutely,
you're right, and that's why I picked time travel. That's exactly right. So I've been thinking a lot about time travel movies. So I have a list. Now I know probably the list Nazi will be clicking on it any second now. But
can I just be list fascist? I don't want to be a Nazi.
Okay. All right,
Goebbels.
All right, I'll dull the sword a little bit for you. I guess a good way to qualify this list is that if you take time travel out of the movie, plot doesn't work. So it can't be a movie with time travel in it. It has to be a movie about time travel. Okay?
Or where time travel is central to the plot.
Or time travel is central to the plot.
Yep.
And there might be some, and we can have some debate because I have some that I have a little bit of a question about, but I do think it could qualify. And also, if I leave any out, feel free to let me know. The mother of them all, Back to the Future 1.
Yep.
Also, I'm going to include Back to the Future 2 and 3. Bill and Ted, Excellent Adventure. One of Ty's favorites, Place and Time. Primer, The Terminator, Looper, 12 Monkeys, Edge of Tomorrow, T2, one of the greats, Groundhog Day, Donnie Darko, The Lake House, Flight of the Navigator, Peggy Sue Got Married. My mom loved that movie. I think she loved that movie because it was at the height of when she was a single mother. She had 3 wild ass kids, and I think she liked the idea of going back and not having her kids. But anyway, Galaxy Quest, because they travel 13 minutes, but I guess you could take that out. I don't know if
it's 13 seconds
or 13 seconds, but that's how they save the day. So Planet of the Apes. Oh, one of my favorites, Time Bandits, Run Lola Run, Hot Tub Time Machine, and then Arrival. I would say there's a strong time travel aspect to that.
I would argue that one.
Okay. I'm willing to hear that. This one, as I'm thinking about it, I don't think it is, but time travel is a part of Interstellar. But, you can't look at the universe without acknowledging the time travel aspect of it, right? You can't.
And I think talking to his daughter through time is central to the plot.
Yeah.
Of Interstellar. So yeah. I mean, I think it fits your rules. I mean, would you include Tenet in that list?
I would.
Because the fact that people are moving backward through time is central to the plot of that.
I see Interstellar as very much a time travel. I don't know. The reason I was kind of hesitant is I don't know if you think Interstellar and that's the first thing. But if you take time out of it, there is no plot.
There is no plot, yeah.
Army of Darkness.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I have so far.
I would add Time Crimes to that. It's a Spanish film.
Didn't Jean-Claude Van Damme, wasn't it Time Cop?
Time Cop.
Yeah, Time Cop.
With the lovely Mia Sara, who we were talking about in our Ferris Bueller Day Off episode.
Yes.
Mia Sara was the love interest in that, yeah.
I was joking about, do you know what I'm talking about when I say a place and time?
I don't. I have no idea.
So, it's a Christopher
Reeves. What about Time After? I thought that was Time After Time.
It's called Somewhere in Time.
Is the Christopher Reeves?
Somewhere
in Time.
Travels back
Somewhere in Time.
Via hypnosis to old Mackinac Island, Michigan.
Yeah, Somewhere in Time, where she's like, "Come back to me."
Yeah,
come back to me, and then he goes.
What's the one with the guy who comes forward in time chasing Jack the Ripper? Is that the one, Time After Time? It's a movie from the 80s. It's a guy who is chasing Jack the Ripper, and somehow they get pulled forward in time. So he's still hunting Jack the Ripper, but it's in 80s America.
I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah.
Did you see it, Clint?
I just Googled it. It is Time After Time, 1979.
Time after time.
Yeah.
Hey, what about Free Jack? Remember Free Jack?
Free Jack is definitely a time travel movie. For sure. Yeah. So you included Groundhog Day, which means that you're including the time loop movies.
I brought up Groundhog Day to see.
But there's other time loop movies. I mean, there's
and then
and there's a great time.
Because
Run Lola Run's a time loop movie.
Yeah, and so
stop interrupting me, Clint.
And Palm Springs, and so that Netflix movie that just came out. Yeah, how dare you?
Yeah, Clint,
stay in the closet, Clint.
No, the one I was talking about though is there's a TV show, Russian Doll, which is a time loop TV show. Yeah,
but I don't know if time loop should be a time travel movie because
that's what I'm saying is if you include Groundhog Day, you have to include the other time loops.
And I have question marks around Groundhog Day to have the conversation, which would disqualify Groundhog Day and Run Lola Run. Because essentially, when that day picks back up, then he's on his regular timeline.
Yeah.
So he kind of there's a glitch and he gets stuck in a loop, and then he kind of. So I wouldn't say that's a time travel movie.
I think time loops are kind of their own thing.
Yeah, I think you're right because that Palm Springs I really enjoyed, the Adam Sandberg movie. I think Back to the Future is at the top of the list. I'm forgetting about the H.G. Wells. He had a few movies based off his
The Time Machine.
Right? The Time Machine.
Yeah, Time Machine. But I didn't like any of them. Did you?
I liked I believe it was made in the 60s, 50s, late 50s or early 60s, maybe the version of Time Machine that was made then. I liked that one a lot. I saw it as a kid, so of course I loved it. Maybe if I saw it again now, I wouldn't like it as much. There are things I like about the Guy Pearce Time Machine, mostly Guy Pearce, because I think Guy Pearce is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's not a great movie. I
didn't like the movie.
It didn't work.
I liked Guy Pearce. Did you like Primer?
I did. I really liked Primer a lot. It was hard to find when I watched it because it had come out and there was a buzz about it where like, oh, there's this like really interesting time travel movie that made for like $7. It was hard to track down, but I was happy I did. I really enjoyed it. And it's super complicated. Like if you try to figure out exactly what happened there, like I've looked online and there's like YouTube things of like flow charts of where everybody is in the timeline, and it all works. I mean, it all lines up.
Yeah, I had to go back and write it down. Okay, they're going now to this booth. Okay, now they're going to that booth to make it make sense. But it's really smart, and it certainly all works.
And it was very cleverly written because it doesn't spend a lot of time explaining things. So the other one that you might like then is the Spanish language movie that I told you about, Time Crimes. Time Crimes has that same sort of complicated, multiple things are happening in the timeline at the same time, and it's only after you've gotten to the end that you realize what happened, and you kind of have to watch it again because, like, now once you understand what happened, like, oh, and then you watch through again, and like everything makes sense, everything starts lining up. So Time Crimes is like that.
I need to watch that. So for me, Back to the Future is my number one of the time travel movies. Now,
Back to the Future is a pretty spectacular time.
And now we can have a conversation too of what time travel rules we like the best, or what we think is the. I mean, you can't say most accurate, but what theoretically makes the most sense. But
no, Back to the Future makes zero sense. Nothing about that movie makes sense.
Yes.
But it doesn't matter because everybody acts like that's the way it works, and the plot runs on that, and the plot is so good, and the acting is so good, and the story is so good that we don't care. Like it's fine.
But here's what I wonder about, because what I love about what I think is really interesting about Back to the Future is that he has a picture of his siblings.
and they're disappearing.
And they're slowly disappearing. Like he'll look and his body's going to how does that work? And what I love is that when I watch it, I just fully accept it.
You just
I'm
go
fully
with it.
on board. I just go with it.
Yep.
But if I said, Ty, I have this script, I just wrote the script, and you would say, Wes, you got to get rid of fucking pictures of the people. What does that mean?
Yeah, so how does that work?
I always wonder how things like that, you got such a smart filmmaker like Robert Zemeckis or whatever, and how did they know, or the foresight to be like, nobody's going to get hung up on this. They're just going to totally accept it and go with it. And then also, would you say that Back to the Future 2 changes its time travel rules, or is it in line?
I don't know that it changes. It seems the rules seem to stay very consistent through the whole trilogy.
I mean, the only reason when I was looking this or whatever, I was reading something about that, and I racked my brain. I can't see how the rules are changed, because essentially McFly goes back, changes something, and it affects the future when he comes back, and then it's the same thing in the second one. I mean, we forgot about the butterfly effect with
that's right. Yeah, and I didn't think it was a great movie, but I thought the premise was pretty haunting of the first one.
Yeah.
It stumbled a little in execution, but I thought the idea was interesting. Ideas they explored with it were interesting.
So for me, Back to the Future and Terminator, which I think have similar rules of their time travel.
Yeah, Terminator acts like it's more hard sci-fi, so it feels more hard sci-fi, but I don't know that it actually is.
Right. Were you a fan of Looper?
I'm not a huge fan of Looper. I really like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I know people are very divided on him. I'm not sure why. I think he's actually very talented, but like that's one that makes zero sense. Mm-hmm. That like they're cutting off your limbs in the past, so suddenly you're just missing an arm. But if they had cut off your arm in the past, you wouldn't be where you are now.
No, you would have a completely different life.
You would have a completely different life. A one-armed guy life.
Yeah.
So that whole thing was just made zero sense. And every time they did that, I was like, what?
But I sit and think about it sometimes, because if Marty McFly went back in time and changed something, that would spiral off another timeline, because it was a completely different thing. And then if he went back to his life, what he did would have no effects in that present moment, because he's on that timeline, unless he travels to that timeline. And so then what you have is a machine that can travel through parallel universes. It's not necessarily time travel.
And they actually make that point specifically in the second one.
That's what I was trying to ask you about. So the second one, and I can't remember exactly, I really liked Back to the Future too. But what's confusing to me, so he goes back, he affects something, it spirals a new timeline, but when he goes back to the future, he's going back into that other timeline. Why is he not going back into that original timeline that he came from?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the reality is,
we're boring.
Any time travel movie, if you dig into the logic of it, none of them make any sense.
Yeah. So, except Somewhere in Time, that is solid logic. And then what I like,
looking at a penny from the future makes you fly back into the future.
If you wish it enough, and if the love is powerful enough, it'll send you back. You don't need any kind of time travel thing. You just need to be hypnotized. So, and also about this list, how would you say, if there is a movie that you like better, but the time travel aspect of the movie that you like less, does that put it higher than that when you're doing a list that's specifically about time travel?
I don't know. I don't even know that I understood that explanation.
Okay, so like I love Terminator, but it has a really simple, straightforward idea of time travel, which I love in stories and I think works and it's fun. And then you think of something like Primer, which I don't love as much as I love Terminator, but they really focus and the time travel aspect of it is really well done.
Very thought out, yeah.
Very thought out and well done. Does that automatically put it in a higher place than a movie that you like way better?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, it hasn't the rule always been, it's just whichever thing we like more.
Yeah. I really liked Edge of Tomorrow. I thought that was kind of that one's kind of a sleeper.
I also enjoyed Edge of Tomorrow quite a lot. Again, if you really think about it, it doesn't make any sense, but it stays consistent. The rules stay consistent in the movie. And that's really all I'm asking for, is that once you establish the rules, that for the rest of the movie, those rules stay consistent.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. I don't like whenever a rule changes and it was clearly changed just for plot convenience.
Right.
That's just bad writing to me. But, Edge of Tomorrow, it was very consistent. And Tom Cruise, he's crazy, but he's really charismatic on screen, man. You cannot deny that guy's charisma.
And he's underrated with his comedy. He's very funny.
Well, I mean, he started out in comedy. Like, he became
Risky
an action
Business?
star. Yeah, he became an action star later in life, but his first few movies were much lighter.
I'm putting Time Bandits #3 because I just love that movie. And anytime it was on, especially when I was a kid, I watched that movie over and over. But so here's the thing, because we both love Arrival so much. That's got to be on the list.
No, I don't think it is, because Arrival is not a time travel movie. What Arrival is a movie in which a character, because she learns the alien language, has her mind opened up where she sees her life all at once, where she can see any time of her life in the present moment. And so she's seeing the things that are going to happen to her in the future, but she is powerless to change them. And that's the tragedy of that story, is she becomes aware of every moment of her life, forward and back, and is powerless to make changes.
Right. I hear your argument, and I think I even agree with your argument, but it could be argued the other way because she's living and seeing everything at once, that there is a time aspect of it, a time travel aspect of it, where she's seeing the future and the past in the middle all at once. But you go from her original experience of living a linear timetable to her interaction and connection with the aliens, then to everything being at once.
But see, I don't think she's traveling in time. I think what she is her awareness of the future just feels like a trap. Because
yeah, I agree.
Now that she's aware of that future, she can never do anything to change that future. And so now she has gone from a place where she could believe she had choices in life to a place where she no longer has choices in life because she's already aware of everything that's going to happen and she already knows all the choices she made in the future. So now she has no choices. And I think that's the great tragedy of that story. I mean, that's why Ted Chiang is, I think, the best living science fiction writer, because he can grapple with huge ideas like that. Those huge philosophical ideas of free will and just, it's funny that we bring that up because we were talking about free will and determinism earlier. He's grappling with the idea of free will and determinism in the structure of that story in a brilliant and beautiful story that's just heartbreaking. Ted Chiang is I still think, the greatest living science fiction writer.
Yeah, I agree with you on all accounts. So we love Galaxy Quest.
I love Galaxy Quest, and I will fight for Galaxy Quest in almost any arena. I don't know if the 13-second Omega device should qualify it as a time travel movie.
But look, it was the thing that helped him.
It is.
It
is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to fight too hard, but
Weigh in, Clint. Weigh in.
I love Galaxy Quest. I think there's too many other good sci-fi movies to think that it's going to make a list.
Okay. What about, are you a Donnie Darko guy?
I like Donnie Darko fine. I'm also grown up, so I don't think it's as deep as I did when I was 16. But it's fine.
What about you, Ty?
I like Donnie Darko. I liked it the first time I saw it. I thought it was...
But not to be on the list.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great time travel movie. I think it is a great movie about teenagers being angsty because the world doesn't understand that they're central to the plot. I think that's what that movie is about.
What about 12 Monkeys?
Yeah, 12 Monkeys is a pretty great time travel movie.
100%.
Yeah. So we should put that. We're at number 4 now.
I think as an exploration of the trap that time travel becomes. So in the same way that Arrival talks about the trap that perfect awareness is, the trap that omniscience is, 12 Monkeys is a movie about the trap of time travel. That the minute you start moving through time, you become trapped by this future and the past. And as an exploration of that, I think it's brilliantly done.
Number 5. Were you a Bill and Ted guy?
I loved the first Bill and Ted. Came out right around when my wife and I were dating. We probably wound up seeing that movie like half a dozen times for various reasons. I love that movie.
So out of respect for your wife and your marriage and nostalgia, we're putting Bill and Ted on there. What year would Bill and Ted come out? 88?
Somewhere in there, yeah. 88, 89, somewhere in there.
It was so fresh to me. Like, I haven't seen anything like that. It didn't take itself seriously.
My wife has a gigantic crush on Keanu Reeves, so I think that may be part of the reason we watched that movie over and over again. But I was fine with it.
I also think that's another one. If I was like, hey, Ty, I got this script. Where basically these stoners go into a phone booth and they go back in time.
No, but the minute you say idiot teenagers get a time travel thing, that changes what the movie is, right? It's like a comedy. It's the minute that something is a comedic premise, you can do anything you want, right? If you pitch that movie to me as a serious drama, I'd be like, that's idiotic. But the minute it's a comedy, like Hot Tub Time Machine, the premise is idiotic, but it doesn't matter. It's a comedy. It's a comedy about middle-aged men pining for their lost youth and their lost past.
Right.
And it's brilliant. It's brilliant for that. I love that movie.
Back to the Future, Terminator, Time Bandits, 12 Monkeys, Bill and Ted.
Those are all pretty good.
But only Keanu, and I'm not drawing a blank on the other guy's name, could have held a whole movie and you still like them at the end without becoming annoying.
Yeah.
You know, I never saw Dude, Where's My Car, but I feel like that they were trying to do the same thing.
They were. And it didn't work.
You got to be as likable as Keanu Reeves to pull that off.
What is the name of the actor who plays Bill? I know his name because he's also in Lost
Alex
Boys.
Winters.
Alex Winters, thank you.
Alex Winters.
because he's in Lost
and he
Boys.
does a lot of directing too.
He does now, yeah.
Alice Winter.
He sort of moved out of acting and into directing. But yeah, I mean, he was great in Bill and Ted. So charming, so likable.
Okay, that was season 3, episode 10, Dandelion Sky, right? That's the name of it.
Yep.
And thank you guys for hanging out with us. Please like and subscribe and support us. Thank you. Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.